You are listening to the Starter Girls podcast with Jennifer Loading. Whether you are starting a project, starting a business, starting a brand, or starting a movement, we are here to talk about it. And the Starter Girls show is brought to you by Walt Mills Photographer of Glad Models Agency. If you are here in the Dallas or surrounding area and looking for some photography, check out Walt Mills. You can learn more about him at photosbywalt.com. And with that, we're going to get things started. Today is a great day to be brave. You might as well start now. You have the power to change your circumstances any day you decide. Let today be that day. Rise up, be amazing, be you, do you. All right, friends, I am super excited to welcome my guest today, Jo Lamb, to the Starter Girls podcast.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm going to tell all the listeners a little bit about you real quick, and then we're going to dive into this.
Yeah.
Because I know they're going to want to know about you kind of like I wanted to know about you, right? So Jo Lamb is the founder and CEO of Project Beauty. This Dallas-based 501c3 nonprofit organization strives to restore confidence in domestic violence survivors through teaching self-love and self-empowerment. As a domestic violence survivor herself, Jo has learned to turn her pain into power and is now on a mission to empower the women around her to remember their divinity, which merely means remembering to see themselves the way God does. Jo believes that every experience is a teacher. Having lived at a shelter herself, Jo uses those experiences to empower survivors by teaching them that their past does not determine their future. Some of the tools that Project Beauty uses to educate women about positive self-dialogue include journaling and affirmation writing. And I love that already. That is everything I talk about, why that is so important and what we do. And it's important for everyone, really, everyone. So I want to dive into this really quick and just, I don't say really quick, we have a little time, we can talk about this. But I want to dive into this because we all have a story, I feel like. They're all very different. And I feel like we never really just arrive there overnight. There's this progression that we go through that leads us to this whatever this passion, purpose, calling, whatever you want to call it is. And so I want you to take us back and kind of tell us how this all came about for you.
Yeah, so I'm just going to take you through a little journey.
Hey, take me through the journey.
So I am 12 years old and I am from Hong Kong. So picture a little girl, in Hong Kong, and, we were pretty poor. I mean, Hong Kong is industrious city, but there's definitely a class system in place. So my parents struggled, and my father was actually mentally ill and did not know it. And growing up in Hong Kong in a culture where mental illness wasn't really talked about, and I think we're getting better now, but in the Asian culture, we just simply don't think mental illness is real for the longest time. So when we brought up to my father that maybe he needs to see a doctor, he would just chunk it up as, I'm tired, I am just mad at my boss. It was always an excuse. It was never about him. So here I am, 12 years old, and we're looking to immigrate to America because, little history background, Hong Kong is a British colony, and 1997 was coming, and that means that China is going to take Hong Kong back, right, from the British rule. So if you're Chinese, you're very familiar that you don't want to be living under the China rule, right? So we don't want to be in communism.
Right.
So my parents really fought hard to bring the family over. So when I turned 12 that year, that opportunity came up. We had to pay tons of money. We had to have family sponsorship. We came here the legal way because we knew that this is where we wanted to be for better opportunities. Right. So here we are, pack up all things, and we can only take one box. It wasn't like, where you move from state to state. Literally, as a 12-year-old girl, I looked at all of my things in my house and said, you can take one box.
Wow.
So I just remember, taking the things that are dear to me and not even knowing what's going to happen. And I remember crying on the plane and, not speaking the language and really just being scared. So that in itself really traumatized me looking back.
Right.
So then we get to New York, and that's where my other family is. My mom's side sponsor us. So for a whole year, we slept on the floor of my relative's apartment.
Wow.
We lived in Brooklyn. Very, very poor. I mean, we cramped into this little space, and we did everything we could to earn money. My life was not like a typical 12-year-old. My dad's illness got even more severe, right? When you When you multiply the illness with immigrating to a new country, not speaking the English, having his trade taken away. He was a very skilled plumber, owned his own business in Hong Kong, but when he came to New York, he worked in a restaurant, like most immigrants. So he was very unhappy, very, very angry, and the abuse just got worse. You know, he would beat me and my mom every day.
Wow.
When I came down to Texas at 16, for a while things were better. And I thought that maybe this was our chance to change.
Yeah.
You know, I look at my dad, I'm like, maybe finally I'll have my dad. He can come to games and live a normal teenager life. But it wasn't the case. That year, I made up my mind to run away after he nearly killed my mom. And so I ran away very shortly after that, thinking that I can save my family. So I thought money was going to solve everything. I took up jobs and I had a plan that I was just going to come home and bring my sisters into my own apartment and my mom, but that wasn't the case.
Right.
When I was in the streets, and I call it streets because I was literally homeless, I would float from houses to houses. Some of my friends noticed that behavior were changing at school because I would withdraw and I would have marks on me, and people just noticed that there was something really wrong.
Yeah.
Because I'm very outspoken, as you can tell. I'm very energetic.
Sure.
But when it comes down to like family and discussions about what's going on at home, I just withdrew. I didn't have an answer. And so some of my friends would take me in like 2-3 weeks at a time, not really letting me move in, but just letting me stay there. So I couch surfed a lot. Then I met a boy. And what happens is when you're so used to trauma, the men that you're attracted to are going to resemble the same pattern that you grew up with. So the blueprint that I was taught about love is that love hurts, love hits, and love is it's going to hurt you. It's insulting. It's going to cross your boundaries, right? Which is not true.
Right.
So meeting this boy and him being my savior at the time, I immediately I just took hold of him and I did not want to go anywhere else. He took full advantage of that and started like manipulating me, brainwashing me. So over time, he completely took over my life. I distanced myself away from my family and friends. Nobody knew where I was. He was a really bad guy. He sold drugs. He had a reputation. But I thought this man loved me. Halloween night came. I was 17 years old. And I was at a car wash one day. And he saw me doing something that I didn't like. That night, he tied me up. He gave me the worst beating of my life. And that was the night that he branded me. And I mean, this man tied me up with duct tape, pistol whipped me, and proceeded to tell me that I'm going to give you a lesson that you're never going to forget. So he went and took a coat hanger, carved it into his initial, and I'm sitting there watching him with my mouth bound with duct tape, and he branded me with his initial. So that night is the turning point.
Yeah.
Because I remember being thrown into the closet, in and out of consciousness, bleeding, and just praying that please don't let my mom find me dead. And I remember asking God that night in the closet, what is my purpose? Why do I exist? Because in my short life of 17 years, I have experienced nothing but trauma and abuse and pain. And I was so suicidal up to that point anyway. So it's like, why do I exist? Well, after that prayer, a series of events took place. And about a year after that, I was able to escape. From that point on, I went straight to a shelter. And I really believe that while I lived at the shelter, a lot of things in my heart and my soul start to awaken. And I start to see other women that were struggling and why they were struggling to end the cycle of abuse. I would talk to other women in the shelter and we would talk about, why did you stay, girl? Like, why did you stay as long as you did? And one common theme among all the women is that they did not feel that they deserve any better.
Wow.
Every single woman that I talked to felt that that was the best that they can do.
Right. Wow.
Right? And that's directly tied to your self-esteem, to our self-confidence, our self-worth. So, of course, the shelter that I went to, they did a phenomenal job, helping me get on my feet, legal action that needs to be taken, helping me get clothes, get food, all those basic necessities. Great. And so most of us who exit out of the shelter after 90 days are in our own space. Now we're working and we're trying to get on our feet. But guess what? The healing never took place.
Right.
Right. So here, and think about it. Just think about the people that you know that may have gone through this. As soon as they get back on their feet financially, have a place to live, do they really go back and examine? Why do I pick these men or
but
women?
It resurfaces. It comes back up. Yeah.
And so I went through that journey of examining my process and thought I was fine, to be honest. So I got on my feet, rebuilt my entire life. By the time I was in my early 20s, I was back in the corporate world. Nobody knew about my past because I was very successful, made tons of money. I was very ambitious. I knew what I wanted to do. But guess what? Those wounds inside never went away. So every year I would go through these mental breakdowns. And for the longest time, I thought it was because I was stressed at work. So I worked in a finance company back then among a lot of men, very high pressure job. So I thought it's just my stress. Then my therapist, my psychiatrist told me one day, Joe, I'm just going to have to tell you this, and I want you to look at me. You are depressed. You're a highly functional person.
Right. With depression. Yeah.
With depression. And I said, what? No. You don't. And he said to me, every year you come see me, you got to take these long breaks from work where you just lose it.
Yeah.
It's like we have these wounds and this toxic energy and these trauma that gets bubble up inside. And it's like every year, excuse my language, but my shit box just couldn't take it anymore. Right?
It's a good way to put it. I like it.
Like that's what I explain to people is that each one of us have this box of shit.
Yeah.
And we, throughout the years, days, weeks, we cramp our shit in there. Somebody hurt you, somebody insulted you, cramp it in that box. Your boss tells you you're not adequate.
I like it.
Cramp it in your shit box. So by the time my shit box was full, it would explode. Yeah. And guess what? I'm left with shit.
Yeah.
I can't function.
Right.
I can't function at work. I couldn't carry on my relationship. I just broke down. My body just simply broke down every year. So then I stopped seeing the therapist. I said, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Like most women, they're like, yeah, whatever. I don't need to pay you $50.
I don't need to pay you to tell me this.
Yeah,
I got this.
I'm fine. And so then it kept going. And then I had my child. When you have a kid, what's really funny is that you then begin to really look at yourself. Yeah. Now, it can go two ways. You can completely ignore your past and just stay in your toxic energy. Right. For me, it was like another awakening moment, right? Because you look back at your life and there are different moments where you're like, see, the universe is really trying to tell me that you need to fix this.
You need to fix that box. You need to get that box cleaned up.
Clean your shit up, right? And here I am ignoring these chapters until I had my son. He's 8. He just turned 8. And I remember I had to get off my antidepressants. And my doctor goes, Joe, I know that you've been taking this meds for a while, but by the time the 3rd trimester comes, you have to get off your meds. And I said, okay, I will. And she goes, just to let you know, most people who get off these meds will probably have a very severe depression once you have the child. So I'm going, great. And of course, just like he said, I suffer postpartum, severe postpartum, because I never cleaned out my shit.
Yeah.
So now you add on the baby.
Right.
Now it's like a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I spiraled. I spiraled into depression and then went back to a therapist, got back on my meds. But a year in, I said, I'm fine. It was always, I get good enough to just kind of on the surface to the world to look like I'm back in business, but never really healing the inside. Then the universe sent me another moment.
Yeah.
2017, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis. A lot of you guys may be familiar with lupus. This is the sister disease. Lupus affects your organs. Rheumatoid arthritis affects your joints.
Right.
So here I am, handicapped at the age of, I'm in my early 30s now, and I couldn't move, couldn't open my own water bottle. I couldn't drive. I couldn't walk. I had 2 boys at home that I could not take care of. That was my lowest point. I thought postpartum was my lowest point.
I've had a chronic disease, so I know.
Yeah, what did you have?
Oh, I have a nerve condition in my face called trigeminal neuralgia, which is a very painful condition. So I understand.
And it's invisible because people don't know that you have it.
Right. So my point, not to diminish yours, I'm saying I relate absolutely to what you're talking about, being in a chronic condition that you can't free yourself from. And your health is probably, I always say, one of the absolute... If you don't have your health, you have nothing.
You have nothing.
Like, you have nothing. Because even if you got to go through something, if you have your health, you can at least fight. When you don't have your health, you can't even fight. You're just down.
And I think that's what really made me feel like that was the lowest point. Because if I'm in bed all day, like I can't even open a water bottle.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
so what did you do to
get, what did you do? This was hurt. So before my husband left or whatever, they would open the bottles in the house, open everything for me. And that was my life. And so then I got desperate, right? Then I started looking into holistic modalities, meditation, yoga. I was like, at that point, I was like, whatever it takes
to make you better. Yes.
And that's when I really started my healing journey.
I love it.
When God, universe, source, whatever you want to call this, higher consciousness, when your life completely stands still, no job, no child, you cannot do nothing, you're now forced to deal with your shit.
Absolutely. I love it.
And that's what happened.
And that's your story. No, and you know what's so interesting to me is that your story and my story are so different. We have a lot of resonating pieces because I can understand a lot of what you're saying. And I absolutely agree with you 100%. When you hit rock bottom, and your health is so crucial to you as a human being, and when you hit that rock bottom, and I talk about, I was just telling somebody today my story, and I was talking about this moment when I came in out of my, what I would say was my final doctor's appointment. I may have shared this with you. It was in December of 2015, 1 year shy of my 4-year anniversary since I had started dealing with my health condition, and I was in a very suicidal state. And I've never been one to be in a suicidal state, so I really know what that feels like. And I just remember walking out, and it was like, do or die. That's where I was, where my mind was. It was, you talk about your box, that's where I was. It was either clean it up or end it. That's where I was. So I'm getting chills even talking about this because I remember that moment so very clearly, thinking, I've got 3 kids at home right now, and they need me. And I have missed 4 years of their life because I've been consumed by a condition that I've allowed to control me. And so 100% I agree with you. When you hit the rock bottom and you get to the bare minimum and you realize, I've got to change something, you're open. You become a vessel to give me what I need to heal. And you recognize through that journey that it's not just about the diet. It's not just about the food. There is it's so interestingly, I was just on the phone with somebody last week who has this condition. So back when I found out about it, we didn't have Facebook groups. I didn't know anybody that had it.
Oh my gosh.
So I was just a unique bird out there that had this condition that nobody knew about. Like, how did you get that? Like, right? Hello, I don't know. And now I know all these people that have it. But she asked me, she said, what did you do to cure it? And I said, well, I could tell you all day long. I did a ketogenic diet for 22 months and that did it. Yes, that did get the inflammation out of my body. But there were so many pieces to that puzzle that I put in place during that time that were steps that just evolved over time. Because even when I came out and got off my medication, I wasn't still healed from it. I had been traumatized from having gone through this. I had been defined by this. I had lived 4 years in chronic, severe pain every day of my life, and I didn't know how to evolve outside of that.
Right. It became your identity.
Exactly. So 100% I get everything that you are saying because it is such a journey that you go through, which I imagine is what led you to what you're doing today. What you're doing today. So tell us a little bit about this really quickly.
In 2018, when I had my massive awakening, Project Beauty was one of the ideas that I felt in my heart that I needed to act on. Right? It was up to this point where I'm like, okay, this is what I'm called to do. At that time, I was working for Yelp. I did a lot of their marketing work, not the sales, the marketing.
Yep.
And I would host events throughout DFW, and we would partner with businesses. And so in one of those events, I told the salon owner, I said, how would you like it if we brought in women who actually needed this?
Yeah.
What if I were to go and bring women who are widowers, who've been through chemo, who are domestic violence survivors, just women who've been through trauma,
Yeah.
and can use the healing. She goes, you know what, Joe, I trust you. Go for it. With that said, I invited 10 women and hosted them that night, that following 2 weeks. And the energy in that room, and the women who cried and said, Joe, this was the best thing that
Right.
we've ever experienced. I thought, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what I have to do. So honestly, no plan. Never done anything in the nonprofit world other than just volunteer and, do
Yeah.
committee work. But you know how when that calling
Mm-hmm.
comes, just like your podcast, just like your work, this is your path.
Right.
So immediately I started calling shelters, doing the work. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew that it was the path because every shelter that I went to, that I call, they were like, Joe, we were just talking about this.
Yeah.
We were just talking about how we needed this program. How soon can you guys come in?
Yeah.
So within 6 months, we had signed on 5 different shelters. And now we serve like 10 different organizations. But just thinking that in 6 months alone,
Yeah.
every door that we knocked on, they said, we need this
Oh,
program.
absolutely. I could see that. Yeah.
So what we do is we bring that beauty experience into the shelter, right? So we have 4 different programs.
Okay.
The first program is the Gift of Beauty, where we go into the shelter and we bring full-size makeup, self-care items that they can use on their own time. We want to teach women and children and the survivors how it looks for you to cherish yourself, to just do some self-care, because that is really the first step to honoring yourself, right? So then the second program that we do is the actual beauty day, where we come in, we bring estheticians, massage therapists, nail techs, all different beauty professionals. And we come in and we just set up the entire shelter like a spa.
Love it.
There'll be a facial station, nail station. And let me tell you, these women, most of them have never gone through these treatments. They were not allowed,
Right.
or they just never had the resources.
Yeah.
And the person that walks in before the treatment and the person that emerges from the treatments is just unbelievable.
I
You
can
get
see
2
it.
different people. The third program that we offer is the Angel Clinic. And what the Angel Clinic does is that we actually provide funding for anyone who has physical disfigurement from
Okay.
past abuse. So in 2018, when we were visiting Hope's Door, a young lady walked into the room and she had a missing eye.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And immediately I knew this woman has gone through some
Yeah.
horrifying experiences. She didn't want to talk at first. She was very close, very to herself, like most people that we see. But as the makeup starts rolling out and people start getting their hair done, people let their guard down, right? Like when you
Right.
go to a salon, you want to talk to your stylist. It's this universal language of beauty that everybody understands. So she began to lower her, wall and explain to me that she was pregnant when she was punched by her abuser.
Oh my goodness.
And she punched her so hard that she lost her eye and her hearing.
Oh my goodness.
So I said, what can I do to help you? She goes,
Yeah.
well, I found a doctor who would do it for a reduced cost, the prosthetic eye. I just don't have the money. I said, you know what? We're going to get you those funds in no time. We raised all the money in 2 days.
I love it.
And we took this woman to the doctor
Yeah.
and sat there with her as she was getting this eye put in. And then we gave her entire makeover process with the photo shoot, hair, makeup, all of it.
Wow.
So she
Yeah.
can have a new start. So that seed in
Okay.
itself is what started the Angel Clinic.
Gotcha.
So since then, we've done tattoo removals. We've done scar revisions for branding that happens on sex trafficking victims. We get those requests all the time. We just don't hear about it,
Right.
because we're not tuned into that. But there's so many women out there walking around right now, like myself, who have scars and tattoos from their abusers. So just imagine yourself starting a new life, and every day you got to
Right.
look down at this tattoo with someone's name.
Yeah, I imagine.
How do you heal from that?
Yeah.
So the last lady that we help in our angel clinic, her name was Dawn, and you can read her story on our social. She had her tattoo removed finally, and she said, "Oh my God, after 8 years, I am finally free from this man."
Yeah.
And I just looked at her and said, "Oh my God, I'm just so glad that Project Beauty exists for that." Because we just don't think about that, right? And the last thing that we do is the trauma healing, where we bring in affirmation writing. We talk about journaling. We talk about art therapy. All of the channels in which we can allow someone to express their emotions without using words.
I love it.
Because a lot of times the pain that they go through, they just can't talk about it.
Yeah.
So the art therapy gives them a medium to express, and the affirmation and the journaling is really to reprogram that negative belief that has been ingrained in them for all those years of abuse, right?
Yeah.
The affirmation changes them. The journaling allows them to really have awareness of what they feel. Because once again, if you don't acknowledge it, you can't heal it.
Right.
So in a nutshell, that's what we do.
I love it.
We provide a space for healing that we don't really see right now, right? We don't think about healing as a separate component.
Well, you and I do. We
do, yeah.
We get it. We get it. We know the importance of it. But yes, you're right. When you're going through a crisis, you don't see that component because you're in survival and you're at that moment. And survival is different. It's different for everybody, and everybody goes through different kinds of survival. I think it's all a similar thing, but we all process it very differently, and we all have different levels of what we call we have to survive through, whatever the trauma is or whatever that is. And so I think you're right. I think that when you're in that moment, you're not thinking about that healing process. It's when you come out on that other side, you realize there's more to this. You've got to heal inside. You've got to internally heal. It's not just about physical healing. It's internally getting right with what you've gone through or right with what you need to move in order to heal, to move forward.
And it's usually when they hit a stumbling block. Like, I want to be honest. Like, most women don't think about their healing until they start dating again.
Yes, I could see
and
that.
then what happens is they go out and they start finding the same men with similar characteristics, and they're like, well,
why am I doing the same? Why am I having the same thing again?
Did you ever reprogram your thinking to think differently?
But that's like everything in life, Joe. If you think about everything in life, the very thing that we don't want, we continue to do because we keep telling ourselves we don't want that. But it's like we're reinforcing it. We just keep talking like, I don't want to date those kind of people. I don't want to date those kind of people. But you keep finding those kind of people. And it's until you start raising your level of expectation and your deserve level that you recognize, no, I don't have to have that in my life. But I think that's like everything. I think it's that way with jobs. I think it's that way with your circle of influence, everything. Like what you think you deserve, you will never rise above until you make that level of it for yourself higher. So your story is so incredible. Like, girl, we could talk about this forever. I love what you're doing. I love all of it. And I can't even ask you so many questions because I just wanted to hear your story and what you've got, how this all kind of came about, because I believe the story is what is important. And I think people resonate with stories. And, I think a lot of times that people see us with, and they see us on this outside and they don't really know. They see the limelight of everything. And they don't really know that behind all of that success, there is a story. There's something that's back there that had to bring you to that level. And so I think what you're doing is so incredible. I do want to ask you this question before I move on to some fun questions here. What is the best part of this for you? What do you love about all of this?
Seeing the transformation. It gives me pure joy.
And you kind of touched upon that earlier. So I definitely can see that.
I think people, when they ask me that question, they expect me to give some really whirly answer.
Oh, I
want to give world peace. And and that's great too. I'm not diminishing that. But I really believe that when you do something, it has to be for your own joy because you don't need anyone to motivate that. When I get up in the morning, girl, I cannot wait to get up out of bed to go change the world because my own joy and my own purpose perpetuates that. If we're doing it for anything other than our internal reasons, if we're doing it for external reason, at some point that's going to sizzle out.
100%. I love it. You just like spot on. Because you're working from a purpose and a passion. And that's what I call flow. When you get into Zoom,
love it.
Is it not awesome? Flow. When you get in your purpose and your passion, your calling, you are no longer forcing energy. You're working with what you love to do, your gifts and your talents. And you wake up excited. You don't.
And you're magnetic.
Exactly. And you don't wake up thinking, when's Friday? Because that's when I'm getting paid, right? You're thinking, I love this day. Like, it's so funny we had this conversation because just yesterday I got up in the morning and I may or may not share this with you. My husband's an engineer. He's very serious. When you talk about the DISCs.
Really? He's like the opposite of you.
Yes, complete opposite. And so yesterday morning, he was in a hurry because he rides his bike to work in the morning. He's got to be out at 7 o'clock because he's got to go. I'm like, this is so much work. Just get showered and go to work. You got all that going on. And I have a lot to say. Like, I just have a lot to talk about. And so yesterday, he's eating his eggs, and I'm like, something good's going to happen today. And I said that to him. I said, something magical is going to happen today. I don't know what it is, but something's going to happen.
Feel it, yeah.
And I know he's over there thinking, how much money is this going to cost me? And I'm always like that. I'm like, who am I going to meet? What's going to happen?
Yes.
How am I going to use my influence on somebody? How is somebody going to impact my day and make my day better? And how am I going to be able to make somebody else's day better?
That's
so
right.
I love what you're doing. We got the energy flowing. So I got to ask you a couple fun questions because you got it going on. But these are my fun rapid fires. I got to throw these at you really quick.
I love these.
So morning or night person?
A night.
Okay, I wouldn't have known that, but yes, you got it going on. That's why your energy's all going right now. We're getting close tonight. I'm going to be tapping out in about 2 hours on you. I'll be going downhill. All right, cat or dog person?
Ooh, dog.
Dog. Do you have a dog?
I don't anymore.
Okay, but you like dogs.
I do.
I like them all. I have everything. So
it's hard
wouldn't
to
be able to answer that
choose.
because I'm like, I got cats, I got dogs, I got rabbits, you got like son. Like if you have a boy, you got like all kinds of things,
Yeah.
So, all right, and Joe, what would you say is your favorite food?
Sushi.
I like sushi too. We need to go have sushi.
Let's do that.
I love sushi.
Let's do
like
it.
that, sushi and chips and salsa are like my two.
Yeah. I can eat those probably every day.
Me too.
Queso.
Yeah, we don't even need anything else. We just rotate that. Exactly. And then every once in a while, I'll throw some custard in there and I'm good. Like mix that in the middle. We got it. All right. And if you were on a deserted island, I was going to say dessert. I was going to say dessert.
I was like, that sounds good.
Dessert. If you were on a deserted island, you have your food, so you can have your basic things. What would be the one thing you'd have to have with you?
Chapstick.
Chapstick. That's good. I've not had anybody say chapstick.
I cannot live without my chapstick.
That
would drive me crazy if I didn't have something to moisturize my lips.
I got on my chapstick. It's so funny.
Before water.
That's good. Well, your lips will be hydrated. Their lips will be hydrated. Right? I love it. And if you could be any superhero or character for a day, what would you pick?
Oh gosh, I don't know a lot of superheroes.
Well, what about a character? Or make one up. Make a Joe character.
I think I would just be me. I would still be me. I honestly feel like I'm a superhero every day.
I like that.
Because we
I think that's good. You're owning your superpower.
I am. I feel like I'm a superhero every day
because
love is my superpower. So I don't think I want to change anything.
I love that. You are incredible. I admire you. Your story is so impactful, and to be able to come on the other side of that. And I know when I was writing my book and I didn't disclose I have not disclosed everything in my book. There was trauma that we went through with my daughter during that time. There was a lot of other things that I won't, and I respected her privacy was part of the reason I did not disclose that. But it was a very difficult time. So when I was writing my book, and then I didn't even realize the impact until I went back and wrote it, and then I had read what was written. That's when we talk about like not cleaning it up and having it come back. That was when I remember sitting and reading that and looking at that and going, wow, that was hard. Like that was so hard. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
But now I look at it and I think back and I think, somebody asked me on another podcast, she said, do you feel like you had to go through a crisis? And I've been through a lot of crisis because I feel like there's some of us that have to learn a lot of lessons to be able to have that.
It's the hero's journey, girl.
Yes.
That's what it is.
And some of us are very stubborn. We got to dive in. We got to have a lot of crisis before we come on that other side and be like, you know what? I think I'm done creating crisis for myself. I need to help other people. But this gal asked me when I was on her podcast if I felt like I needed to go through a crisis to be able to help other people. And I said, I kind of think, I had to have my own testimony. I had to have my own proof that I could walk on the other side of something so that now I could show people that, hey, if you want to do something and you want to do it bad enough, you can do it. You want to come out of the mess you're in, you can get out of it any day you decide. Let today be that day. That's where that mantra comes from. Every time I'm in a little bit of a funk, I talk about mantras all the time. Anytime I find myself in that little sticky little funk we get in, that mantra comes up. Girl, I can change it like that fast.
And it's powerful because
Exactly.
we all need those anchoring thoughts, right? Part of the reason why we teach affirmations is that most of us do not have those anchoring thoughts
Right.
to fall back on. So you have your mantra. For me,
Yeah.
I always tell myself I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Love it.
It doesn't matter what situation. If something could have just catastrophically happened.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no. I'm exactly where I'm
Right.
supposed to be. The universe always has my back. So this is just that moment. This is just contrast.
Yep.
And I'm okay with it. But without that foundation, though, we would not be able
100%.
to overcome. So
Yeah.
I agree. You need those tragedies and those stories.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and they give you, and especially if you're in that place where you have the ability to make change, and if you think back, I had a gal on my show, and I've talked about this several times on my podcast. We always talk about your strengths come and they find you. They eventually catch up with you, and whatever your gift or your talent is, I feel like those things happen to help kind of bring those up, help you find those and
Yes.
use that. And so whatever that is, whether that's talking in a platform or it's going in and doing, bringing things to people, whatever that service is, I think that those things allow you to find that voice, allow you to
Yes.
find the means or whatever that is to get that out there. So you're doing great stuff. And so if our listeners wanted to find out a little bit more about your project,
Yeah.
where do we send them?
Yes. So if you want to volunteer, if you want to donate products monetarily, whatever, we'll take it all. It's www.theprojectbeauty.org.
Look at
right
that.
there on the screen. And you can sign up to volunteer or donate anytime. And follow us on social media, Project Beauty DFW on Facebook and Instagram.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And we'll make sure when this goes out that we get all the tags where
Yeah.
they need to be so that people
Awesome.
can check it out. So definitely to our audience, check it out. So Joe, I want to tell you, thank you for coming on here. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story, because I know that is difficult to do. And, I hopefully our audience, somebody will pick this up, this message, and
Yeah.
really, come check out what you're doing. Maybe want to get a part of that, or maybe your story will resonate with somebody so that they step up.
Yes.
They come,
That's really
they come
what this is
forward
about.
with the healing, because you're right. That is what it's all about. If you help somebody change, you've done something great, right?
Yes.
So I want to say to our listeners, thanks for being a great audience and
Thank
listening to this
you.
story. It's incredible. If you enjoy our podcast, please be sure you give us a rating on iTunes and check out our YouTube page and hit that subscribe button. And of course, we are on iHeart and Amazon as well. And with that, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought. I'm too excited. I can't even talk anymore. All this greatness. We don't even know how strong we are until we are forced to bring that hidden strength forward. In times of tragedy, of war, of necessity, people do amazing things. The human capacity for survival and renewal is awesome. And that is by Isabel, I want to say Allende.
I love
Isn't that great? It fits so perfectly with what we're talking about
Yes.
right now.
I love
So
it.
to our listeners, you guys be safe, take care, and be kind to one another. We'll see you next time.
Bye.